everyone, and welcome back to another episode Spotlight on CS Ops. I'm Matthew Lind, and
Mike, your co-host, Jean Nairon.
that's right. I still have to work on the pronunciation of your name. I'll get it a couple episodes in, so I get it with the perfect French lilt.
Right. You for an American, you're doing fantastic.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. With us today, Travis Floyd. I have been privileged to know Travis for a long time. He is one of those folks that I slack maybe more than my fair share of times to say, I'm stuck on something. How would you work on this? Have you bumped into this? And I'd say 9 times out of 10, he has. And so I'm so pleased. We are so pleased that he's here today. So, Travis, welcome.
Thanks. You're a little too kind, but I'll take it.
No. Now I am super curious. Before we get into CS Ops, I want to put spotlight on your bookshelf, your office. So
Okay.
whatever is behind you is so interesting to me that I don't think we can do this interview without asking you what is happening there.
So that's kind of my hobby. I do woodworking in my spare time, and I actually just finished building a shop in my backyard. 36 by 36 shop. It's like 1,300 square feet. It's my dream shop. So to do stuff like that, and then other things like I built the barn door behind me as well. So it kind of varies, but I built all of those for my youngest two sons. Each year for Christmas, I would build each of them a truck. So they're all made out of maple and walnut, and they played with them like crazy, but now they've outgrown them. So they sit here, and when my grandsons now come over, they play with them. So
That's
See,
super cool. I come from like construction family, and so I mean, as I look at the toys, like that's not an easy feat. Like you must have a lathe, you must have quite a few different tools, like even just getting all the wheels done. And I see the cement truck there. So like I
yeah.
can see that's, yeah, congratulations. I mean, that in of itself sounds like you could have an amazing career just building toys. Sounds like you might be actually like Santa's workshop at your house or something.
Well, and the funny thing is, there are posts that I had like on Facebook over the years, and stuff. People would be like, "Hey, show us what you're working on," and post at like 3 a.m. on Christmas morning, going, "It's almost done," because it was like right to the very end to have it ready. So yeah, I've had a few of those.
That's super
we didn't
cool.
know that Santa had so much stress in the final hours on Christmas Eve and maybe Christmas morning as well.
Yeah, it may be self-imposed, but
So cool. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us on the show. And yeah, I'd love to just tell us a little bit about your background and sort of how did you get into the field and where did you start? Like,
Well, the probably the more interesting part of my background is less about the CS piece, but it is my initial startings. Right out of high school, I went straight into the military, and I was the chemist for the nuclear reactor on a nuclear submarine. For I was on board the sub for 2.5 years. U.S. Navy Trident missile submarine, so one of the big ones. So I did that for a number of years. When I got out of the Navy, it was kind of like moved back to. I live in Utah, and we moved here, and not a lot of nuclear reactors around here. So it was like, okay, what do I do?
not a lot
So
of subs,
Nor
even, right?
submarine space, I
or
would think. There probably aren't a
submarines
lot of
for that
submarines
matter. Yeah,
trolling the state of Utah.
right. So I somebody asked me, "Hey, do you know word perfect?" Now that's dating me if the comment about grandkids earlier didn't. I was like, "Yeah, I hear they're hiring. Yeah, go check it out." So I went up, and they practically hired me on the spot. I started in tech support, and this was back in the early 90s. So I did my stint in tech support, which I kind of feel like for what we do and for what, you know, a lot of this job entails, a background in that really helped in troubleshooting and understanding, or asking questions of users. Okay, what are you doing when that happens? You know, type of thing, to try and figure out what's really happening. But did that for a number of years, then moved on to email system support, then moved on to consulting, did implementations of email systems and computer networks and all of that. Then moved into more of a project management role. Got my master's certificate in project management, did a lot of that. Then we hit the dot bomb and everything started falling apart as far as the computer industry, and, you know, different consulting, different jobs like that. Ended up doing a short stint in sales as a sales engineer. Did that at AT&T for a couple of years and realized that that's not the world I wanted to live in. Got out of that, went into QA and development. Was doing software testing, more large scale software testing in a large lab environment. Moved into more of an ops role there, managing the lab infrastructures and all of the environment in that, massive storage arrays, server farms, virtualization servers, spin up and tear down test environments, networks, all that kind of stuff. Did that for a number of years. That was at Symantec. And then they offshored the team that I was taking care of. They sent them all overseas. And so I transitioned the lab, and then they moved me more into a project management role in our support organization, which evolved to become customer success. Part of it because it was a buzzword, and part of it was because they had a team doing customer success, but it was all encompassing the whole support org. Did a lot of things there as far as process improvements and modifications, and then they had me help out quite a bit with systems because I had a little bit of a knack for that. And then they came to me and said, hey, we're buying this thing called Gainsight. We want you to learn this. It's like, okay. So started down that path and did the initial implementation alongside Gainsight professional services. Implemented there at Symantec, ran that for a number of years. And then Broadcom bought Symantec and decided they didn't want to use Salesforce or Gainsight or anything else for that matter. They kind of run a very lean ship. And that was when I decided, okay, I want to keep doing Gainsight. So I left there, was at Podium for a couple of years doing their Gainsight instance. And then my former chief customer officer and my former director of ops tracked me down and said, hey, we want you here. And so I came over to Armis about 2 years ago. So there it is.
Very cool. That's quite the trajectory from nuclear subs all the way to Gainsight. I can see how that strings along, though. It's a very easy transition, right?
Right. It kind of makes sense once you hear it, but at first you're like, you went from what to what? But yeah.
I'm curious, like, out of all the experience, like you've had a breadth of experience, right? And you were saying like you've been exposed to different teams, you've worked in different things, sales engineering, QA, networking, systems, all sorts of stuff. Like, why customer success ops? After all of that, after you've seen all these things, you've decided that this is the path for me, and you've stuck with it now for a few different roles. But yeah, I'm curious, like, why CS ops?
It's kind of a culmination of a lot of those things. You're able to apply a lot of those different aspects or components to bring it all kind of together to bear to come to a solution or build somewhat of an environment. And it's kind of an evolution too. I mean, the tech world is evolving. What used to, companies that used to have server farms and all that stuff in their buildings to operate their day-to-day operations have completely gone to the cloud, and everything's gone. And so different aspects of that, it just kind of made sense from an evolution of where the industry and where tech is headed in general. And I tend to gravitate toward an environment where we work with people and work with how do people get things accomplished, or how do we build processes to make things more efficient? How do we operationalize data to utilize that to make business decisions and so on. So a lot of that has kind of driven me to where I am now, and I very much enjoy it. So yeah, so it's until there's some other huge radical change, unless AI can figure out how to run Horizon Rules Engine without us, I'll probably be doing this for a while.
Very good.
Love that comment. Fellow support, I don't want to say veteran because you are a veteran and I am not. Let me be careful about that word, but also have a support background here. So
Oh, yeah.
I appreciate that trajectory. Now, curiously though, many of us who have support backgrounds, we're good at this threading, chaining events together, figuring out, well, okay, there were 6 processing steps here, and I broke at step 4. And I know you have those gifts too, but yet, okay, in your last answer, you're like, oh, but I love working with people. So how do you join the two? Like, where did you find that sweet spot for yourself of like, I'm working with a tool, I'm building a rule, versus, and maybe not versus, but and with, I'm working with people all day.
Well, there's kind of a balance and a sweet spot. I mean, there are definitely roles within CS ops that you pretty much focus just on data and rule process engine, and just doing that aspect. And some people gravitate more toward that and focus purely on that, right? Because that's their comfort zone, that's their area. I tend to be a little bit more of an extrovert, so I like to engage with people and understand how things are working, not working. And that helps at a level of, okay, is what I'm building working for the people that it ultimately is for? And sometimes, and I ran into this a lot when I was building networks, or policy rules for firewalls and all this other kind of stuff. Sometimes the people building these environments forget that they're building it for people, rather than, this network could be perfect if I could just get rid of the end user that keeps just screwing it up, right? And a lot of times we just lose focus about the whole purpose of why it even exists is for that end user. There's a larger purpose to it than just to build the perfect process, to build the perfect rule, to build the perfect data model. And guaranteed you were going to have people who are going to throw kinks into your perfect data model. Some leader is going to decide they really like the term sentiment. And now that you've been using sentiment to label feedback from customers, and now he's like, no, I'm going to call this sentiment. You need to reword that. And so you got to go rebuild all your data model to be assessments instead of sentiments. Anyway, that might have
Not
been
that that's based on a true story or anything.
that might have been a recent real world scenario.
That's super cool. And like you could tell that you're a true builder, true and true out. I mean, the fact that you're building toys for someone else, your children, and now you're building things for, CS leaders or customer facing teams. Obviously that's core to your DNA, that you love helping people bring maybe joy to their life. Maybe sometimes Christmas morning, maybe sometimes it's just during the week or whatever, but it's cool to see that out of, as part of your DNA. I'm curious, like in your day to day, like how much, when you talk about like, you spend time a lot with people and you're engaging and then you're in the system, what does that balance look like? Are you kind of 50-50? Are you, heavier on the talking or engaging people, or what does that look like?
Kind of a little bit of both, because I pretty much own the Gainside environment myself. I don't really have anybody else working in there. So, from the aspect of working with leaders or end users around reporting requirements and needs and what they need to do there, or workflows, and what they're trying to accomplish in the end, to some of the heavier weighted, hey, we have this telemetry that we want to integrate into the health score. We've got to figure out how we're going to do that. How are we going to weight it? How are we going to calculate it? How's that all going to flow? What recommendations do you have? So part of it will be, at a different part, you'll be diving deep into the data and trying to analyze and figure out what that's going to be. In other parts, you'll be working with end users. And the other thing too is you have to kind of keep that balance, or keep in mind, you'll have I'm in a startup environment, so it moves fast, it's furious, there's a lot of change all the time. Very different from the world that I was at Symantec, where it was a massive corporation, a lot of change process control and different things like that. So here I have managers coming directly to me, different managers going, hey, I need this, I need this, I want you to change that. And find that sometimes a change will, while it maybe makes sense for manager A, it's going to completely break everything for manager B over here, as far as what their idea of what's going to be perfect is. So trying to keep that in mind as you go through and analyze that. We've actually had kind of some structure changes to where we have like our high touch segment and our mid to low segment, and they have completely separate VPs, and they've almost kind of started operating independently, like two different CS orgs. So I'm trying to support almost like two different CS orgs in one Gainside environment. And sometimes that gets a little interesting. So you end up
I would
playing.
think so.
Yeah.
Like, did we split? Did we did we have a spinoff here and I missed it, corporate wise?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just kind of and now we're kind of looking at those synergies and kind of bringing it back together and different things like that. So, but I've kind of had to be that one to say, okay, wait a minute, let's check the impact to the other teams about what you're requesting for this change, or how do we implement this new thing so that it works on both sides of the fence for what's going on. Or if it is completely unique and independent, let's just, we can go ahead and do that, if the other team, if it doesn't impact them and they don't need it. So
We'll build it to be so. One
yeah.
thing you said that I think applies to a lot of folks in CS ops is like you're the only one in this case managing the CSP, the customer success platform, but it's really common for there to be one person shows in CS ops, or maybe it's even a half a person show, like it's a CSM who gets, who does it on the side, so to speak. So which leads to people sometimes saying, I feel lonely here, or I don't have anyone to talk to. So have you experienced that? And if so, how do you address it?
Yeah, and I kind of, admitted to the I'm an extrovert, which I think
Yeah.
was fairly obvious anyway. Uh we've met, right? The whole thing with COVID and not sending anyone home, I felt that then quite a bit. I actually was the first group hiring on a podium that had ever hired on remotely. Everyone had always worked in the office, so they were trying to figure it out. I was the guinea pig group of how do we even bring somebody on board without having them come into the building, type of thing. So I started with them working from home, having never really worked in that environment, and having to figure everything out remotely without having people to talk to ask questions, I mean, you try and get meetings and Zooms and different things like that to make it happen, but it was pretty lonely. And now the environment I'm in now, our entire company is remote in the US. We have a main office in Tel Aviv, but everyone's remote. So we've become a lot more familiar and a lot more comfortable working in this environment and being in a Zoom meeting or something to get things done. So there has been that. And I know there's been a lot of mention in your prior podcasts about the Gainsight Global Admins, our Slack channel that we put up, and I was kind of to use an old Navy term, I was kind of a plank owner. Well, I was one of the original, join-ins on that environment.
You were definitely one of the original gangsters.
So that has been heaven sent. I've built relationships, both of you part of, and many others that I've gotten to know over the years that we've had that running. And it's just been a great outlet. Some of us even joke around about that we almost need to have a channel called the therapy room where we just go and vent. That might be community only. It might be, I don't know. We have a couple of different areas where that might happen, where you just kind of go in and just have to commiserate with like-minded and similarly engaged individuals on why is this happening to me, type thing. But it's, yeah, that has been heaven sent for that purpose alone, if not to just help solve questions, solve problems. And that Matt had mentioned, we talk fairly often, and I'll ping him, he'll ping me. There's several that I've built some really tight friendships with on there for sure.
That's awesome to hear. And thank you for being a part of the community and helping to share with so many. I know I feel so much the same way. Like, I think so many of us are sitting at home in our home offices working on the exact same problems, or have seen similar problems. We might not be working on the same thing at the same time, but that exposure, that connection, to be able to be in the trenches, sort of speak together, and to be able to just share and learn from each other, I think has driven the success of the community. And super cool. Great to have you a part of it.
Well, and it's there are times when you start figuring out people who have lots of battle wounds and scars and experience and different things that are in there, and you start, they kind of end up being your go-to. And sometimes actually, more often than not, I'll throw it out to the channel first before I'll even attempt to go to support to try and resolve something, going, okay, sanity check what I'm doing so I don't look like an idiot when I get over to support and somebody goes, oh, click this, right? And a lot of times that's easier and faster to go to the group. But then, not to name drop, but man, I get stuck on an API. Wayne Baker, what, dude? Have you seen this? Yeah, here's the script.
Well, he
Yeah.
is amazing, but I think you are the one we call Mr. API, and I don't know if we call that to your face or I just spilled the secret, but I think you also have been a pioneer in the API space.
I am a Padawan to Wayne.
That's honestly, I can't thank you enough though. I know I've gone to you for help. I know that so many people have gone to you for help, and it's so interesting how we have this connection amongst us all, but there are some OGs in the community that you always know, like, whatever question you got, just go. You're a part of that. Wayne's definitely a part of that. Jeff's a part of that. It's just like, it's such a nice, easy way to get help and to move things along and not be stuck waiting for, external help and stuff. So I think it's been a super powerful thing for so many of us. So thanks again for being a part of the community.
It's been a lot of fun to see the growth of some of the new people coming in too. And then, they'll learn something, and then somebody will ask a similar question and they'll pipe in, oh, I saw that. Oh, I've done that. And I'm seeing that a lot more and more and more as the community grows and as people are more and more active in it, it's a lot of fun. And then you got part of the hard part is not getting too distracted by it, because there's so much going on over there that you're like, oh, I want to watch this. Oh, I got to go to a meeting. So it's been very fun to be a part of it, and to watch it evolve. It's been great.
Very cool. So I want to giving back to the community and like maybe helping that next generation as well. And I hope that's part of the show. It's really about, hopefully we can all learn a little bit from each other and continue that journey. I'm curious, like if you look back before you joined CS Ops, like is there anything that you would love to know, or you would have loved to have like heard first before you joined, or is there anything like if you were to tell yourself, if you're going to go back a few years and tell yourself like, hey, this is the thing you really need to know, what would that be?
Things that I've kind of picked up as I got involved in the CS Ops that I maybe had not been as exposed to in the past, might have been more on some of the relational database functions and different things like that. So maybe a little bit deeper knowledge in database functions and different things like that would be nice, and a good place to start. And I remember going through the very first introduction class to Bionic rules at Pulse. Kendra was teaching it, and the go-to was, okay, do you understand VLOOKUP? So Excel is your friend, different things like that. A lot of that was helpful too. It's just you just pull on different aspects of your history and experience, backgrounds, and just kind of try to apply those. Luckily, I had a fairly varied background to where I had different areas to pull from. Some of the younger, newer entrants into the CS Ops world is just dive in with both feet and just be ready to learn, and again, having the community that we've built available to you as a resource has been invaluable to me, and I know it would be to them as well. So find that, especially in this remote work world, or even if you're not remotely working, but you're an island in what you do, it's still helpful to have that, right? To have like-minded people in the same trenches, or that have dug the trench you're now trying to dig.
Right. I like that. I've
Yeah.
been there. I've been in that trench. I know how to escape.
Or
yeah.
I know where you're trying to go, and you're going to hit a big rock.
Right. Abort. Right. Well, Travis, I mean, you are one of those folks that, speaking of community, that has obviously been a big part of it, and it's part of the reason Jean and I have decided to embark on this podcast, was to connect like-minded folks. So thank you for being an inspiration to so many of us and a resource, and it's been so amazing to talk to you today.
My pleasure. I've gotten more out of it than I've given, I think.
Awesome. As have we, to be honest. So thank you so much, Travis. Great to connect again.
Thank you.